Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena for yet more DIY fun. Ava and I have really enjoyed the time we've spent here in France, but it is almost time for us to leave. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, we'll take care of the last projects we want to get done before we set sail for Ireland. On the to-do list for this week is such exciting items as finishing the last bit of our anchoring setup, getting a ditch bag put together, making a cover for our propane tank that lives out here in the cockpit, and also getting the shower up and running. My name is Mess, this is my wife Ava. I've spent the last 5 years on a somewhat extensive refit of our 1987 Warrior 38 named Athena. That was a DIY fun-packed adventure complete with a very extensive osmosis treatment, building a new rudder using vacuum infusion, rebuilding the entire deck, gutting and subsequently rebuilding most of the interior, painting the top sides, and a ton of other projects. The summer of 2021 we started cruising full time. Now we're finally ready to begin our adventure. Our upcoming passage to Ireland is going to be our first offshore passage together, and it'll be my first offshore passage aboard Athena since 2016 when I brought her back to Denmark. Now, after having spent the last 6 years refitting every square millimeter of this boat, I have complete faith in Athena, and we do have backups for all of our critical systems. We also have 2 satellite communication systems, and it is only a 2 to 3 day passage. Having said that, if something goes wrong out there, we are very much on our own, so being prepared is crucial. As a last resort, we've got a brand spanking new Viking life raft up on our cabin top. But if we ever need to go into the life raft, we want to bring a ditch bag with us. This is basically a collection of items that may or hopefully won't become useful in the life raft. We are still waiting for a few more items for our ditch bag, so we'll get back to the contents of this a little bit later in the video. While safety is super critical aboard the boat, so is hygiene. Super smooth segue. I have a few things I need to fix in here before we can start showering on the boat, and that is what we're going to be doing first. The first thing we need to be able to do is to put these hatches back, but there's this white hose here poking out of there. That is the diverted water from the water maker for when the water is not going into the tank. So yeah, we need to figure out what to do with this guy. Then we also need a shower curtain, and the hatch into the technical compartment is leaking. Let's start with the hose from the water maker. I picked up this telescoping faucet from Whale. I also picked up some hose barbs and some of these push-on fittings that'll fit on that white hose. This is going to be pretty straightforward, but it did take me a lot of time to find all of these fittings here in France. So 8mm rigid white hose to flexible hose here to telescoping faucet. And it looks like this guy needs a 21mm hole. On many boats you'd see the divert hose from the water maker ending somewhere around the sink, but for us I think we're going to go a little bit untraditional and put it in the shower. With the hole being up that high, I'm not super concerned about the plywood rotting. It shouldn't see that much water, but we might as well just apply a little bit of epoxy to the plywood. I think we'll keep this hose here as short as we possibly can, so something like this. I think this will work out really nicely, but because we're going to be mounting the telescoping faucet on a vertical surface, perhaps we should just trim it a little bit. Aha! Perfect for a vertical surface. I am 100% confident that that diverter doohickey is going to work out. What I am not so confident about is sealing the hatch into the technical compartment. The problem with this, the first seal I put on the hatch, is that it's not squishy enough to get a really good seal. I got this new seal from Amazon while we were in the UK. I don't know if it's going to work out, but it looks fairly promising. The hatch is in place and it feels pretty convincing, but let's fire up the Shower Simulator 2000 and see if it still leaks. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but there is a little bit of water pooling up in here. That's a good sign. That means it's not inside of the technical compartment. I have wiped away the water on the inside of the shower here, so now let's open this and see if there's any water that leaked in. That is bone dry. And looking at the seal here, the inside lip is completely dry, so I think we have a winner. The epoxy I used to seal the plywood in the shower still needs a few more hours to cure before we can mount this guy. So why don't I grab the propane tank out here in the cockpit and we get Ava started on the cover for that.
Canvas work is back, baby. That's right, but today we are going to be covering this beautiful, well, not so beautiful propane tank, and that's why I want to cover it up, because it sits on the back of the boat attached to the arch. So I thought, just like the jerry cans, let's make a canvas cover for this and get it looking nice and spiffy. Just like the jerry cans, I could not find a template online for this specific propane tank or the way that we wanted it, so I got out our handy dandy tarp material and made a template myself. This cover is going to be made out of two parts, a bigger part that sits over the whole body of the propane tank, and then I'm going to make a cover that fits around here and that you can open and close with a buckle right here. I have the template made for the body part already, and it looks like it fits really nicely, but what I'm going to do is cut this out, sew it together, make sure it fits on the propane tank, and then I'm going to take measurements again and make a template for the top part. We are going to be using our Sunbrella alternative again. We really like it. It's nice and sturdy and it holds the shape really well, and the Starbrite glides right through it. So we really love it. And I know a lot of people have been asking where we got this, so we will put a link to the blog post I wrote about the canvas covers down below. Without further ado, let's get to sewing. Sorry about all the background noise. The marina's cleaning the pontoons right now, getting them nice and clean, so there's a little bit of scrubbing noise going on. But we have our finished body. It's looking pretty good. I end up putting a little reinforcement here because the hose is going to be going through there and I want to avoid chafing. So now I'm going to do some measuring and make a template for the lid. One finished propane tank cover, also matching my outfit, but that is not the best part. It comes with one buckle, a lid that opens and is attached, and I also made the lid here overlapping so the hose can fit inside and still sit nicely. I am kicking myself over one thing though, and this is why templating and prototyping, as Mads always tells me, is so important, is I forgot to make a seam allowance for my template, and I was going to add it when I was drawing it onto the canvas, but I forgot. So you can see a little bit of the reinforcement here. It's going to drive me crazy, but we'll just think of this as version 1.0. Here it is, looking all nice and spiffy up on deck. I really love it, and now we just have to figure out a way to secure it because it's so heavy. We need a really strong way to secure it, and we haven't come up with a nice looking way yet. So for now we're just going to use this ratchety guy to lash it to the arch, and even though it doesn't look beautiful, it is going to be nice and strong for now. Up next in the canvas cover palooza are covers for the dive tanks. Now these are going to eventually be living in the aft cockpit locker here, but since they're up on deck, I thought that it would be nice to make them nice little covers. These are actually pretty simple to make. I used the Starbrite winch cover method. You can look that up if you want, but I have this one here. It's turned inside out so I can show you how it works. It has a little choker here, a little extra pocket that fits nicely over the valve, and this gets turned right side in over the tank. Much like the propane tank, these guys get lashed down with a ratchety doodah, and like I said earlier, they will be moved to the cockpit locker, but for now, this will do. While we're on the topic of canvas covers, a few weeks ago I made the jerry can covers and they turned out so great that I decided to make a printable digital template for them. I made a printable template in centimeters and inches, that's right baby, along with step-by-step detailed instructions and a materials list of everything that you need to make your own jerry can covers. The complete digital template package is going to be available on our shop at sallifechannel.com. We'll put the link below, but it will also be provided free of charge for all of our Patreons.
After having installed the telescoping faucet, I put up a stainless wire for our shower curtain. Oddly enough, there were no shower curtains that were a perfect match for our 100% custom designed shower, so a slight bit of modification was required. We've both had a chance to test out the shower and it is awesome. I really love the fact that it is not a wet head, so we can section off the shower. That means after we're done showering, this part of the head is still nice and dry. For a little test shower, I also fired up the in-floor heating. It's really nice to have toasty feet and it also dries out the shower a lot quicker. One last improvement for the head, I've added this little bit of trim down here so we can no longer see the discharge hose from the head. While on the topic of smaller jobs, the weather was so nice outside that we decided to apply Starbrite's Teak sealer to the toe rail. I've never used the stuff before, so I don't know if it's any good. As a small test, we left a small little square untreated so we can see how long it'll last. One thing is for sure, it instantly made the toe rail look a lot better. While Eva was finishing the toe rail, I removed the rust spots on our wheel using 3M's metal restorer and polish. To completely finish our anchoring setup, there are 3 things we need to do. We need to mark our chain, we need to attach our new swivel, and we also need to attach this Mantus chain grabber. A few weeks back, I made this snubber. This is going to take the load off of the windlass when we're anchoring, and the snubber is going to get attached to the chain using this Mantus chain claw or chain grabber. With this guy, the chain sits inside of here and is held in place by this strap. To me, this looks like a very convincing solution. There are a ton of different ways of attaching the chain to a snubber. I've got one of them here. The problem with this little guy is that he's only rated at 700 kilos, which is way below the breaking strain of the chain. The chain claw doohickey, on the other hand, is rated at something like 10 tons. Now you can also use something as simple as just a rolling hitch to attach the chain to the snubber, but yeah, I really like this claw-looking thingy. With the addition of a little bit of seizing wire, that is job number 1 done. If only all boat projects were that easy. Right now, our anchor chain is attached to the anchor using a no-name swivel. I'd like something a little bit more substantial, so I ordered this ultramarine flip swivel. Not only should this thing keep the twist out of our anchor chain, that's the swivel part of it, it should also make sure that the anchor is always returned the right side up whenever we retrieve it. This thing is pretty dang beefy and it feels very sturdy. Now this guy is going to attach directly to our anchor. Something that is typically done with more traditional swivels is to add a length of chain between the swivel and the anchor. With a more traditional swivel like the one we've got here, while it may be able to handle a pull in this direction of maybe 4 tons, if you pull in this direction, it's going to be a fraction of that. What seems to be best practice with this traditional type of swivel is to add a shackle to the shank of the anchor and then a few links of chain attached to this so that the swivel always gets a pull in the direction that it's strongest. Included in the box were 2 Allen keys necessary for assembly and a little bit of thread locker. The flip swivel comes with this neat little hooky grabby thingy here that you can use to just temporarily secure the anchor. That's pretty cool. On the old swivel, I suspect the weakest link in the chain was this joint here that rotates, making it a swivel. For the flip swivel, I am not concerned about sideways load. The neck here can swivel about 30 degrees, I think, but also this entire construction is much, much beefier. The last item on our anchoring related to-do list is to mark the chain. You can do that using paint or zip ties, but yeah, I'm gonna try these rainbow markers here. They seem to be very popular on the internet. So popular, in fact, that we had trouble getting our hands on these and we couldn't get the colors we really wanted, so our scheme for marking the chain is gonna be a little bit weird. But yeah, these little plastic doohickeys just smush in between the links of the chain. I wanted to mark the chain every 3 meters, but because we don't have enough of the marky doodads, we're going to do it every 5 meters instead. And then because we don't have enough colors, we're going to be changing the meaning of the green ones once we get to 50 meters, which is a little bit weird, but this is all we can do with the markers we've got. These marks are going to serve as a backup to our chain counter on the windlass. So on the little remote we've got, we can see how much chain we've got out. So these are more of a backup. But once we can get the colors we want, we are going to redo the marking scheme to something that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, let's go ahead and get these on there. Now we have a working shower, covers for various tanks, and also a functional anchor setup. So that is really good progress on this week's to-do list. We do need one more thing for anchoring, and that is a second anchor. Right now we just have the one Rockna. So if you guys have a suggestion as to what our second anchor should be, go ahead and leave a comment down below. The last item on this week's to-do list is to put together our ditch bag, and the last couple of doohickeys showed up earlier today. I'm not going to claim that what we've got on the table here is the be-it-be-all for a ditch bag. It's just a collection of items that I figured might be good to have in the life raft. Again, if you guys have something you think we should add to this, the comment section is right down below. But there is one thing I should add, and that is in addition to this, we'll also have a jerry can with 20 liters of water up in the cockpit that we can grab and bring into the life raft. And if we've got time, there's also our 2 satellite-based communication systems that might be handy to bring. But those we are going to be using, so we can't really stuff them into the ditch bag. All of this stuff is going to go in this dry bag. This is going to sit near the companionway, so it's super easy to grab in case we need to. In case we don't manage to grab the jerry can with water up in the cockpit, we've got about 1 liter worth of small pouches of water here. We've also got an MRE, one of the cold climate ones, so this should have a bunch of calories in it. Sailing along the coast of Europe and even crossing the Atlantic, I don't think it's realistic that we're going to be stuck in the life raft for weeks on ends, especially not considering that we're carrying an EPIRB and a PLB also in the ditch bag to signal for help. So yeah, we're not going to bring more food than that. To help attract attention to ourselves, we've got a portable VHF radio that's going to live permanently in the ditch bag. We've also got this blowy horny thingy here. We've got old-fashioned flares and this more modern electric flare. I'm not sure how effective this little signaling mirror is going to be. It might be too small to really work, but it doesn't take up a lot of room, so we'll just stuff that in the bag. We've also got a flashlight and some of these safety stick lights. In terms of first aid stuff, we've got a very basic kit here. Nothing really too interesting about that. Then we've got these 2 bags. The first bag here, the big one, is in case somebody springs a leak. We've got a little bit of local anesthetic. We've got needles, syringes, disinfectant, scalpels, suturing stuff, and one of these nasty stapling guns. In the second bag, we've got an inhaler for me because I've got a little bit of asthma. Then we have various types of painkillers here. We've got some antihistamine, seasickness stuff, just a mix of good stuff. And everything fits neatly into this 30-liter dry bag. Like I mentioned, this bag is going to live close to the companionway. It's going to be here inside of our little locker. That way we can easily grab it, but fingers crossed we won't ever need to. And on that very, very hopeful note, we'll end this week's video here. Next week we're going to be tackling a ton of smaller jobs. It's probably going to be our last week here in Cherbourg, so there's a long list.
A lot to do.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys will see that next week. So as always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you!